Okay. So, I wanted to express a little bit more about loneliness. Now, what I mean by that is I don't mean like the type of like loneliness where you kind of, you know, where you feel like you don't have any friends or family to kind of help you out with, your problems, but the type of loneliness where you feel kind of isolated even when even with the people around you to help. And that's often the common thing that a lot of people, struggle with, including myself, because I, yeah, I think most likely it comes from a place where you feel misunderstood. It's it's it definitely feels like you're kind of like the only one, that you're kind of like the only one no one understands, which kind of causes you to feel like an outsider. And that often happens a lot with me, because I pretty much kind of lived out that way throughout my entire life, where I was always trying to seek attention, where I was trying to look for someone to connect with. And at times at times I just kind of you know I mean, usually I kind of vibe with people, but uh I mean, I can easily kind of vibe with a lot of people, with people, but I don't think I don't think I ever got the opportunity to, like, I guess, really like share my my values, or like what I my interests with other people, because it was always hard. It was always hard to kind of relate with other people, and so it was kind of hard to find people like that in my life, which is why I'm usually known to being very reserved. And um, yeah, for me, I'm known to being very kept to myself. And even though I kind of have all these ideas that I want to share, and and kind of just others to hear, so that's that's why and mainly because I think, and I think that never, not everyone, gets that opportunity. And so, but I think because I kind of don't like, there came a time where I just didn't want to, kind of take the spotlight, as in like not being the center of attention, or where I just didn't want to be, I didn't want to be like, the main focus on, or like of course, everyone wants to be seen, like everyone wants to be valued, uh, but it's kind of hard to do that if you don't like open yourself up to people. And that's like a recurring thing, and that's kind of happened with me, throughout this past year and a half, I think, is that it's kind of hard to, like, open up to people, because you don't want to like ruin, that you don't want them to think of a certain way about you. And that's the one thing that I was always afraid of. And so that's why, like it does kind of like, suck. Like it's kind of like, like uh like it's kind of ironic because, a lot of people don't like to be, you know, don't like to be, front and center. They don't like to be like you know, it's like you don't like to perform, on stage, but then you have all these like, ideas in your head that you wanna that you hope, it could be, understood by others, and yet you're kind of too scared to show them. And so that's kind of like how I feel, because like whenever I feel like I have a lot to say, I just don't know how to express it or organize those thoughts, because I don't want it to come out the wrong way to others. Like I don't want to say, something that's completely, you know, not not in regards to what I want, how I feel, and how I think about life. Like I don't want people thinking like, I'm like, deeply, like, depressed, but it's kind of hard to like, to share that. It's kind of hard to like not it's kind of hard to share that without having them to worry about you. And so, and I don't want people to worry about me. Like I don't want to, I don't enjoy, people constantly, checking me up like every hour, every day, Like, that's the one thing I don't like, because it's like that now the attention is towards me, and I'm not really much of like an attention seeker, so at least not anymore. Because back in the day, I would always crave attention. Try to. I was always trying to like, be everything to try to be someone to somebody else, and I know it's an unhealthy habit, but it's just something that I kind of feel like will like something that I can do, because like that's all I'm good for, like that's kind of like how I see myself, because I'm not really too good at a lot of things in life, so that's why, I try to like, push myself to do whatever it is that I have to, and making sure that I kind of make ends meet. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like having, it's pretty much, and like my my goal to please everyone is like very like unsatiated. Like I know that I can't please everyone, but it's like I still try to, and it kind of causes me to go back into, the same old loop over and over again. So that's because it's like, if you like, because once you like if you fail, like if you fail, at many things in life, and you could have done better, then what else can you, how else are you gonna like make yourself feel good? How can you make yourself feel good about yourself if all you do is fail? And so that's why you kind of just see the value in others, how they view you, like. And so, because can't really, I can't really think, I could think of a lot of like, I can't really think of a lot of good things to say about myself, which is why I kind of take value from from others because it's much easier to kind of see yourself through them, like how they see you, because you can't look at yourself, like unless you have like a mirror in front of you, like you can't really see yourself, like your face or how you look, it's kind of like that. But other people, they can see you, you know they can see your actions, they can see your personality, they can see, they can even listen to like the words you speak. They can say a lot of things about you, and that's and you just kind of take it, you know and that's kind of like how I just see myself. Like that's how I can easily be able to to look at myself and just see what kind of person that I am and what kind of person I can be. So, but but mainly, like going back to like loneliness. It's like like how you have like friends that you want to hang out with, but they just never have the time to hang out with you. It's I mean it's not like I don't have people to hang out with, like I do, but when you it's like when you hang out with somebody and like after a while for like an hour or two and like you come back home, it's like those feelings of loneliness can kind of creep in, and you know it's kind of like you crave more of that because you're kind of at home, most of the time, and you kind of want to do something. You kind of want to go out again, and you can't because you have you know you need rest, right? You need to kind of replenish yourself, you know, kind of like recharge that battery. And I always kind of thought, if kind of thought, like during like if I didn't work as much, or if I didn't, go to if I didn't just focus on like my goals, such as like just kind of getting through it, like if I just focused on like just spending more time with myself, then I can kind of not feel as lonely because you get that time, you take that time to like work on yourself, and and but if you just kind of do nothing all day, and I mean you try to like keep yourself busy, whether it's helping out your family, or going out to meet with friends, or maybe if you want, you can even volunteer at a local community. Doing all these things, like they can kind of help for the short run, but you still kind of feel like there's something missing, and for some reason, like I still kind of at times I still kind of feel that way. um and I think the reason why is for 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 that is because I realized for a long time that I didn't really have like a goal in mind, and not just a goal, but a reasonable one. A reasonable goal where it doesn't have to feel forced. It doesn't have to feel like you know like you got to do this because everyone else is doing it. But mainly mainly it's just it's what is it that that gives you what brings like value, like what is it that that's meaning, that gives meaning to you. Like, is this worth going after? And I never had that, honestly. I was just even as a Christian, like it was kind of hard to find that, like I've wanted to be like like a PT for a couple of years, and and it was and and it was just, like an idea that was planted in my head at first. And so, I had all these different fields that I was, given, I was suggested, but eventually that was the one that I kind of landed with. And because of that, I took, a lot of, it took a lot of, effort and time, and a lot of, definitely ups and downs to get to that. And I eventually stuck with it for a while, and I was always just like, afraid of reaching that goal, because I realized that it's going to take everything, and it's going to be, a long journey to get there. And I was always, just afraid of, I was always just afraid of failing too. Like, I didn't want to be someone that, disappointed my parents, or disappoint, just everyone else. Just I don't want to be seen like as a failure amongst my peers. And so, but that was the mentality that I had for like these past couple of years, because like during them like during my especially during my last year, like I kind of saw that dream never coming, like never actually happening, just due to like like my goals not being in line with what I want, and who I want to be. So I'm still trying to look into it. I'm still going for uh for that a career path. And I'm still like currently doing like I'm doing many things to kind of get there. Um, so it's because it's something that I think is really valuable. I think it's something that's very, you know it's something that I've been trying to like work hard and even more, because I kind of spend more time just like studying and exploring, and just kind of meeting with people that that can give me you know what I need to to actually see that. And so it's I've definitely been reflecting a lot too on like what I want to do now that I'm like out of college. Um, so that's been like a huge thing for me as of right now. Just kind of like exploring more and just seeing life outside of school. Um, so so right now I'm currently looking for like work as of right now. I'm still kind of seeing if I can take some classes, but at least take one class, just to kind of keep myself busy, because that's something that's I think what's kind of been helping me is just keeping myself busy, and not staying at home all day, uh, researching, and looking up like information for my for PT school. So, but I think having a reasonable goal can kind of manage those thoughts of isolation, is like knowing if this is right for you. Yeah. Uh so that's one thing that I've grown to acknowledge, is that if you're just doing it because you're good at it, or it's all that you can do at this point, then it's in the end it's really not gonna like last. It's not gonna help you in the end. if if you can't take the time to seek out what you think is important to you, then eventually it's all gonna come falling down. It's not really gonna like it's not really gonna help in the end. Because you can be super successful and super you know secured in life that you still don't you still can't find you know a purpose. You still can't find peace within yourself. And so that's why for me, being able to search that out on my own, and of course having people to kind of help you along the way is super important, because I know now, like, know how to kind of be an individual, carry out my own life, and 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 even though, like, I'll mess up, like, I'm not as like upset about it as I was before, because it's everybody fails, everybody learns, everybody grows from their mistakes, they grow from their failures. So you just have to keep on fighting and keep on finding what that goal is for you, rather than just going through the motions. Because your job can pretty much feel like, because your job can pretty much take you away from who you are, or how you want to see yourself. Like, because I used to think, like, if you went to school, I used to think, like, if you just go to school and that's pretty much it, you don't have anything else, then you just kind of you're just kind of objectifying yourself as someone who's just not good at anything else. So I'm just gonna go to school because why not? Like, I'll take all these prereqs and just see where it eventually lands me. I mean, for it does, some people it does kind of work, but it's like, if you don't find out what that is, then like, eventually you're not gonna want to continue. You're just gonna have to find that out for yourself and work hard to find out what that is. Um, and definitely, loneliness kind of plays into that, because you're kind of more focused on yourself, and you spend less time with like, not you know not, I guess, not being not being like the world, like, going out to enjoy, going out to relax, or even, and maybe you might miss out on, like, like hanging out, catching up with friends, or maybe even family, and so that's kind of like the world that that's what society has put us in, where we're not allowed. It's almost like we're not allowed to hang out with anyone anymore, and we kind of have to push that to the side so that we can just focus on our hopes and goal and dreams, and turn it into a reality. And so, yeah, that's why loneliness kind of comes into play, where you feel, you isolate yourself from everyone and everything, and you kind of think like, you can just hopefully like, in the future you can hang out with them, or even try to catch up with them over through phone or text, but they never respond back to you. And that's become normal now, where everyone just kind of silences you, and you're pretty much on your own. So that's why I just kind of, like, I don't really put too much attention towards like, wanting to, like, catch up with friends, unless it's like like something that'll help me, like, it's something that's like can help benefit me for what I want to do, what I want to achieve. And so like those are usually like the people you want to keep close to you. Like is are those who can who can help you grow, who can help you see success in your life, and sticking with them, keeping them close. But as of everything else, that once you what you once were, like that's all in the past now, because you're not ever gonna, you're not ever gonna, get that again, get that back again. So loneliness can be, a very can be a very dangerous, I guess, sort of detrimental case. It can be a very harmful, uh, thing to go through, a harmful time to go through, but it's also a time to like rebuild and reconstruct. And so I feel like in some ways I have been, reconstructing myself and rebuilding myself as someone that doesn't really have to hold someone's hand to do what it is that, I'm trying to do. Because and I've been trying to do that with with prayer, or with reading my Bible, or even helping out with family, or just learning to cook for myself, or cleaning my own clothes, and even cleaning my room, like making my bed, or even just helping out with other relatives. Like those are things that I've been learning to take in as as value and as important, because it's definitely shown me what what life is really like, after you've, I guess you could say, peaked. But in this case, I think there's still more to it than just that. um so but yeah, that's one thing that I can kind of you know give, I can kind of give as like a grain of salt, because it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely not easy, of course. It's still definitely something I still got to get used to, but you just kind of take it. If you take it like day by day, then eventually it starts to grow on you a little bit. And it it may or may not make sense at this moment, but I mean, I'm still in high hopes that like that it can mean something in the end. So that's that's one thing that I'm hoping for, is that all this wasn't just to kind of because last thing you want to do is procrastinate, right? You don't want to just waste your time like doing whatever that doesn't have anything to do with who you want to be or who you are as a person. And so um but that's what I've taken away from loneliness, is that it's not like it's not like a straight line towards success. It's like it's like a pretty much kind of like a wave. And it can and or you can even see it as like it's not just like it's not just a vertical line. It's like it can be like you can have like all these different things come up, and all these different like branches that are sort of there to help you you know to kind of like just kind of break down into smaller parts of yourself, so that you can kind of discover a little bit more about yourself, and use that as an opportunity to grow and learn and experience, and see meaning in that. And I think that's like what it takes to reach towards a reasonable goal, is to kind of find that out for yourself. And it might not come to you like right away. I mean, obviously, for most people, but for the but I think as long as you're still you're still hungry to learn, and you're still willing to keep going in life, then I think it can get better. It just takes time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of a lot of, willpower. I mean, and it does rely, it does also rely on humility too, like learning to learn from other people, even if they teach you something you already know. That's another thing that I'm still trying to kind of work on. Is like, I don't know, like it's it's a step in process. So that's like that's what I kind of wanted to share, like a little bit on that, touch on that. Um, so yeah.